There was a time in this country when almost every schoolboy in America carried a pocket knife. And this would not have been alarming or unusual. In fact, it probably would have been more unusual to find a boy that didn't carry a pocket knife. But times change, and so we find ourselves in the 21st century where youngsters cannot carry a pocket knife to school lest they be expulsed for carrying a weapon. In my day, as a teenager in the 1970s, that was definitely not the case. Very common to have pocket knives. They were just a tool. Nobody thought about hurting anyone else. And you would see the Aggie kids coming to school, driving their farm trucks with a shotgun or a lever action rifle in the back window on their gun rack. Never crossed their mind to shoot up a school. Just was unheard of. And likely as not wearing a buck knife on their belt. These were working farm and ranch kids. They used firearms to deal with predators like coyotes that would harm livestock, and their knife was a tool for all the sundry tasks on a ranch or a farm. And I would say most of the towny kids carried a scout knife. A lot of kids I knew had been Boy or Cub Scouts, carried their pocket knives from those days. But you just don't see that anymore. But anyway, today for Fun Knife Friday, I thought I would show a pocket knife that I've had for many, many, many years. And this is a Imperial made, a real Imperial made Barlow pocket knife. This is a very old pattern. Dates back to the 1600s. They were made over in England and brought into the colonies, and they've been found all over the place, probably carried by colonial U.S. colonials, and probably during the Revolutionary War. They've certainly found them dating to the War of 1812, and they remained popular for many years. Very distinctive. They kind of have a teardrop shape to them. And they have a very long bolster, usually about a third of the length of the pocket knife. They have a bolster up here. Usually they're found with two blades. A clip blade is very common, although you do see some with other styles of blades. This one's got pretty dark patina. I've used it over the years and it's darkened up. And then the other blade that you'll find is a penknife blade, and these are just a wonderfully comfortable knife to use, whether you're cutting up a piece of fruit or doing a little whittling. Back in the day, probably for many years, you would have found people in quiet southern towns sitting on a courthouse steps and whittling on a Sunday afternoon, just passing the time. Now, the length on this is a standard, pretty much a standard model of a Barlow, and it's about 3¼ inches in length, and opened with the blade. We're measuring right about, let's see here, about 5½ inches roughly, with a blade length of about just a smidgen over 2 inches. Just a very handy little length for any kind of task. Cutting a piece of rope, cutting up a piece of fruit, cutting open boxes. Just a little workhorse. Now there's a couple of other models that are out there. There is a granddaddy Barlow, which I think is a little bit larger, and I believe it's a single blade. And then there's a master Barlow, and I have an example of that here. So here you see the master Barlow is almost in itself the same length as the opened standard Barlow, and says Master Barlow on there. These generally just say Barlow on the bolster. This is a single blade, and you open it up. It's quite large. This is from Smoky Mountain Knife Works, and this is one of their novelty knives. This has a about 3 5/8 inch blade, clip point, with an overall length of about 9 inches. Again, just a good working utility knife. This little one here, the Imperial, this is it says Imperial Prov R-I R-A Prov R-I USA. So Providence, Rhode Island, United States of America. So a real legit US made pocket knife. I bought this one back in the late 1970s, as best I recall, maybe the early 80s, somewhere in there, at a Cornet variety store. And you know, you would have found this. This would have been a very inexpensive and economy pocket knife. For those kids that couldn't afford a good scout knife, the official Boy Scout knife, you would have found them carrying a pocket knife like this, which was affordable to their purchasing ability. So anyway, I thought I'd share that for Fun Knife Friday. Good old classic Imperial Barlow knife. Barlow knife collectors are all over the place. You can find abundant videos about these on YouTube. Some people just love collecting them, the pattern. So anyway, thanks for joining me today for Fun Knife Friday. Thought I'd share that with you, and we'll talk to you all later.